Joshua,
Yeah.
thank you for the opportunity to host The Line today. I am super honored of all of the podcasts that you've done this year, 57 of them, that of all people that you would ask, that you've asked me, Jason Richmond.
Oh, come on.
Chief Operating Officer at BuildWit, to host The Line.
Yeah.
So welcome to The Line.
How
does that feel?
It feels really weird, but as we were talking earlier, I view you as a friend.
Of course.
And so I trust you, and I think that you align with our values, and so it is not hard to put you in the driver's seat for this. So
Yeah.
I'm honored that you'd be willing to do it.
Come on. No, that's great. You know, I accepted immediately because of the friendship.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh shit, I've got to review 57 podcasts to think about what kind of questions we should ask. And then I was just like, you know, hey, where do we want to start? And I do feel like it's important for you to let the audience know, because some people may be new to The Line.
Yeah.
To really kind of start from the beginning and tell us a little bit about, first of all, why did you start Blackline?
Well, I started Blackline because I thought marketing for the trades was lacking.
Yeah.
And the company that I had started previous to that in electrical construction, we had been investing money and resources in promoting our organization and who we were and promoting our culture. Mm-hmm. And we discovered that while the companies that we worked with were great, the trade world, construction world, the dirt world, they're different. Mm-hmm. And they're very different for people in the marketing world. Mm-hmm. And so probably the best story that I could explain it would be, was on a job site with some members of our creative team when we first started. And we were building, we were there for the company that I had started, you know, doing this work. They were doing a job, and they were capturing some photo, video, and just doing some different things. And we're driving one of our Broncos that we drive through the job site, which I gotta tell you, driving a Bronco through a data center job site when it's all dirt, like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But he almost pulled out in front of a haul truck, and he was operating on basic driver's ed rules. And he's like, I was like, whoa, you gotta wait. He has a full load, and he's like, why? Because I have the right of way. I was like, no, you do not. And so that would be the best way that I could explain. We like to say that we're for trades by the trades. Now, everybody at Blackline is not someone from the trades, but I am, and the core of our team is.
Yeah.
And so we actually have a training that we run people through.
That's good.
Because it's different. And we're not looking to, listen, we have done other projects, but we want to market for the men and women that are in the dirt, that are taking things from horizontal construction to vertical construction, to making buildings that you and I are sitting right now. I'm feeling a warm fire right there. That doesn't exist without tradesmen and tradeswomen.
That's right.
So,
come on.
So that's why we created it, so that we could tell those stories.
Love it. And speaking of telling stories, from what I understand, you absolutely love to podcast. So if you've got something that you're challenged by...
That was a lie, by the way, what he just said.
Why would you lean into starting The Line?
Well, one, I like to work with teams of people.
Okay.
Because I think when you operate in a team, you're way smarter. You know, I often tell the story about team operations and perspective, and I don't have a whiteboard, so I can't really do it. But let's just say that my coffee mug here is the issue.
Yeah.
When it's just you're on this side of the issue, you can't see the other side. But when you have a team, and let's say you have 3 other people on your team, and you have a person here, and you have a person here, and you have a person here, and you're over here. Well, you can see this person, and they can see this person, and then they see this person, and they can see you. You actually have a full picture around the problem or the issue.
Yeah.
And so my creative team, you know, the people that wanted to be a part of it, that came to Blackline, that came out of the marketing agency world, they desired to make a difference. That's why they got involved. And so we were in one of our meetings, and one of our creative people said, I listen to you talk all the time. Matter of fact, it's probably something like, you never shut up. And he goes, I listen to you talk all the time, and you talk about with passion why you believe this, why you believe that. And he goes, you really need to do a podcast. And to be honest, the only podcast up until that point that I'd ever listened to was Mike Rowe and Dirt Talk by Bill Witt. I don't know if you've heard of that podcast. It's a good one.
A couple of times.
Yeah. And so those were the only two that I listened to, and I'm like, why would I do a podcast?
Yeah.
And so my team encouraged me because they're like, well, we think that's probably one of the best ways to lift the view of the trades.
That's so good.
And I don't like it because I've lived most of my life as a very private person. I've never had a Facebook. I've never been on LinkedIn before or Instagram or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if I'm being really honest with you, the reason that I don't, I'm glad you asked me this question, because if you're listening, you're like me. And here's why. I didn't want to be on those things because I didn't want to deal with my competitors saying things. I didn't want to deal with the fact that I knew I'd say stupid stuff. I didn't even want to do marketing for our parent company because I was afraid of what might come of it. But what I realized was when I started getting in and trusting my team, that was looking all the way around the problem, we started to get into it, and I started to see an impact.
Yeah.
And then I realized that the impact was greater than the way I felt. And so if I'm going to go through life doing things that only benefit me and only give me what I want, I'm going to miss out on more than half of my life.
Yeah, that's good.
So
I'm super grateful that you're willing to share that, because from my experience in the dirt world, people don't like to tell their stories.
Yeah.
They do live that humble, quiet life. And if we're going to change the industry, if we're going to evolve, if we're going to really position it as a place that people want to be, we've got to talk about it. And so people probably have a lot of great wisdom, and they're afraid to join a podcast.
Yeah.
And what I hope comes from what you're doing, what Aaron's doing, what others are doing, in podcasting is join a podcast and tell your story, encourage others, and don't be fearful of quote unquote failure, because there is no such thing.
Oh, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Failure only succeeds and only becomes failure when you quit.
That's right.
When you give up. If you keep moving forward, and is what I mean by that, there are times a season has passed and something is done, a great way to learn some of these things is start a business and try to keep money in the bank. It'll teach you when things are done and when you need to keep going.
I love it.
But, if you continue to push through that stuff, and I think that's really important. And the reality is, when we have these real and honest conversations, I believe that the world is desperate for them.
That's right.
And so people want to know this stuff. I just had a company reach out about work for one of our sister companies, and they're like, oh yeah, our office listens to the line. And I was like, at first I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
But then I heard them talk about why they liked it. And it's like, wow, the really interesting thing is all it is a real and honest conversation with people who do the work.
That's so good. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm honored to be hosting today. I've reviewed several of the podcasts. I've listened to many, not all 57, but it's been incredible. And I've put together some questions that, just want to ask. Some of them are going to be real short answers. Some of them are going to be a little longer.
I'm not usually nervous, but I am.
You challenged me and said, hey, anything goes. Dig in, ask hard questions.
Did I really say that? Okay.
Yeah, you gave me full permission.
I must have been drinking.
I tried to put myself in your shoes so I'm not asking anything that's going to be hopefully too bad, but I'm going to dig in a little bit. So here we go. If your podcast were a living thing, how would you describe its personality, and what role does it play in the industry? If your podcast were a living thing, how would you describe its personality, and what role does it play in the industry?
All right. You got to give me a minute, because that is a deep question. Like, you really did put some thought into this stuff. All right. If it was a living thing, what would its personality be, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the best way that I could describe our podcast is like the. Do you know what a journeyman is on the job site?
Oh yeah.
That's what I would call our podcast. The journeyman that you want to talk to, that you want to learn from, and I don't mean it that I have anything to say on the podcast, but we have people like yourself on here and other people, and really the personality is one of mentorship, leadership, and desiring to share valuable information with people. So it's like the personality would be much like a mentor that I had when I was younger, really old timer, who I could see him work, and he took the time to show me what the tool was, where it was, and how it worked, instead of saying, just go get the tool out of the trailer.
100%.
That's what I want our personality to be. So that's what I'm saying it is. I hope
30
that's
years
what it is.
ago when I started,
Yeah.
this didn't exist.
Yeah.
I didn't have a place to go and listen. I could go read books, but there weren't even books about the dirt world or construction or skilled trades at this level.
Yeah.
And so I think the way that you've described the personality and its goals and objectives of being a mentor, a leader, a guide, by bringing on, people, we've got a core value at Build What, be the stagehands, not the stars.
Absolutely. I love that line. I'm going to steal it.
It's great. Well, I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you're doing is you're giving others, an opportunity to come on here, to share their story, to share wisdom in the spirit of learning and growing,
Absolutely.
in the spirit of advancing their knowledge so that they don't make the same mistakes. We had the Dirt World Summit this year, and people stood on stage and talked about their mistakes. And it's like, wow, how incredible is that we're creating an environment where it's healthy and normal to talk about problems, to talk about mistakes, to talk about, how to overcome, to talk about people. Like that, I think, is what's going to make a difference and what's going to help attract this next generation to come in and be like, hey, I want to be a part of that culture of learn and grow.
Well, don't you think there's a quote out there on the internet, since I'm out there now. This old timer says, the man who fell or the man who hasn't fallen really isn't all that strong.
Come on.
And it's like, when people want to hear about mistakes, because that's where we learn.
That's right.
If everything is smooth sailing and easy, and I think that's something that's really important, I have to deal with this a lot because life is hard. It is hard, and you have peaks and valleys, but you need to enjoy the good times, but you need to prepare for the hard times.
That's right.
And when you talk about your mistakes and you learn and grow from them, and then when you get people together, and I would even go back to say this is what I want the podcast to be, and I think what we've been trying to do is that team mentality that I talk about. We're trying to invite other people to be a part of our team so we can see the bigger picture.
That's right.
And that's what Dirt World did this year. I was there.
Yeah.
I was there, and you bring a bunch of really smart people into the same room, and you invite collaboration and conversation, and people that are secure enough in who they are that they're willing to talk about their mistakes.
That's right.
Listen, if I work with a guy on a job and I'm in a construction meeting, and he never does anything wrong in the way that he talks, he never has had any mistakes, I don't want to work with him.
Yeah, I can tell you, 30 years ago and in my career, on the personal development side, rarely did I, other than my father, did I have anyone talking to me about financial literacy. Rarely did I have anybody talking to me about behavioral health. Rarely did I have anybody talking to me about spiritual health. Rarely, it goes on and on and on. And I think that we're just living in this new world of we're human, we're real, life's hard. Like the more vulnerable we are about the ups and downs of life, not just on the job, but off the job.
Oh, I agree.
The better off that the industry is going to be, because we all need to be better humans.
Yeah, we do. And honestly, when we focus on that stuff, so I'm a businessman at heart, and so I like efficiency and profitability. I love these things. And I learned this years ago. A young man or a young woman who has a well-rounded home life, work life, all of that stuff, not working them like a dog, not just, pushing through. When you get the full picture, then you have that healthy employee. Do you know how much more efficient they are at work? Do you know how much more money you make with that employee? Do you know how much better the organization is? Like, it's almost inquantifiable. Does that work? Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say it's your podcast, but it's actually mine.
It is yours today, and so that you got to keep going when I go on a tangent. So I
Yeah,
apologize.
I love it, and
You're
I would
in
just
control.
say too, beyond productivity and efficiency, and it's something that I know is near and dear to your heart. It's safer. When the whole person shows up
Oh yeah,
and their mind is right, they're going to look out for others. They're going to look out for themselves. Their emotional intelligence is far greater, and so the more that we can lean into that and build a culture.
yeah.
That's what it's all about. So
We're recording this, right? This is good shit, man.
let's go. All right. So one thing that I've heard over and over again on the podcast, which is interesting, is no edits.
None.
What that was intentional. Why?
So I am a tradesman.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always found interesting in the trades, you can't fake it. And people don't want to see something that is, all right, some people in marketing might not like this. One of the things that I hate about marketing is the ability to fake it. The ability to edit a photo and it's like, oh, that guy is actually not using that ladder the right way. We're gonna edit that. Now, listen, we do that if you're a client and it's OSHA.
Sure.
But with the podcast, we wanted to be speaking to the tradesmen and the tradeswomen who they want to see the truth. And so we don't edit it because we want you to know it's the truth.
Yeah.
And how can we be real and authentic if we're going to polish now, we do polish some of the video.
Sure.
But how are we going to be real and authentic if we're like, well, I said that wrong. And like, if I'm real and I'm going to get buy-in from you,
Yeah.
then you need to hear me say stupid stuff.
100%.
So, and I do that really well. Say stupid stuff.
That's fantastic. Okay. Tell us about the most unexpected moment that you've had while recording. Something funny, technical, or profound. 57 episodes. Surely there was something super unexpected that you were like, I can't believe that just happened on the podcast.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind, and this is not a promotion.
Yeah,
or
no.
billboard,
First thing.
But the first thing that comes to my mind is I'd actually done 3 or 4 podcasts before my first Dirt World experience. And again, our creative team that convinced me to do podcasts, I was walking through the halls of Dirt World, and Marvin Joels is there, Blacktop Banter, great guy. And I had literally I've been on Instagram for just a couple of months, and so he was one of the people that I followed because I loved the stuff that he was posting and things, and I thought it was just cool. So I saw him in one of the hallways, and I said, hey, and that turned into me sitting down about 40 minutes later and doing a podcast with him in front of, like, we were kind of bold and ridiculous, and we set up in the middle of everything. Like,
Yeah.
And so I was scared to death in that podcast. I was like, yeah.
Ironic that you're talking about this because Marvin just had me on the Blacktop Banner Success Group this week.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And one of the photos that I utilized in letting the audience know that Marvin and I had a relationship
You were in
was
the background.
I took a photo of you and him doing the podcast because I can remember it being at Dirt World, walking by and going, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, I had no idea this was going to happen. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that happens at the Dirt World that I just love is there's so many unexpected things that happen that it's like, oh man, that's awesome. Like 2 people getting together doing a podcast or going and doing it's so fun to see that happen.
Yeah.
That's fun. Okay, here's another one. What is the biggest on the spot challenge that you faced during recording and how did you handle it?
The biggest on-the-spot challenge. You mean like someone challenging me or something going wrong?
Like the microphone quit or the headphones quit.
We've had all
or-
of that. There was a time where I was talking with someone and all of a sudden I couldn't hear them in my headphones and I just had to keep rolling with it. But that probably wasn't the worst. The biggest challenge was I did a podcast in February, and we really want to do podcasts where the people work.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, Jason Richmond set up the location for this podcast in a country club with a fireplace. So, I'm
Golf
just,
club.
golf club. Sorry.
Golf club.
Sorry. Like that makes it better. Not.
It does. It's different.
So this is where he works, so he really connects with the people. But we were doing a podcast on a job site in February outside, I love it when we're a little bit more local. We haven't figured out how to get our chairs on the planes. But like in my study at home, where I love to sit down and talk with people, I have these big leather Chesterfield chairs, and we sit there and we'll have a real and honest conversation.
That's good.
And so, to answer your question, the biggest problem or challenge for me was it was February, and I didn't really think it through. We started the podcast at like 6 a.m. because we wanted the sun to come up, and we wanted to be outside because that's where you people work. So if you have to work out there, I need to sit out there and have a real and honest conversation just like you do. Well, kudos to those of you who work out there because it was cold. And our podcasts aren't short. And so you can ask Matt Eshelman, he was the guy that I was doing the podcast with. By the end of it, we almost, if you watch this podcast, I think it's titled like Climbing Up the Ladder or something. He had some really good things to say. But by the end of it, we're visibly shaking.
Yeah.
Because it was so cold.
So
it was
cold.
very hard for me to act like I still wanted to be there and ask relevant questions.
Really, really good.
So
57 guests.
yeah.
Which one made the biggest impact and why?
Which one made the biggest impact and why? So you're asking me to pick a favorite because I love you all. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Jason Rich, no.
Don't exclude me. Exclude me.
Ours was a lot of fun, and that
it was
did
incredible.
make a pretty big impact, but not necessarily because of you, but where we had it. The Heritage Group here in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Man, if there ever is a company for you to look at and be like, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
In every way,
Yeah.
every way. So that was pretty good. But as far as an individual, everybody that I talked to was phenomenal because their stories often encourage me more than they know. I think that the most influential for me was probably when I sat down and I did a podcast with my business partner.
Okay. Very good.
Because he hates talking and being on camera more than anything else. And what I would say about him is he's willing to do whatever it takes to invest in people. And the cool thing is I got to see that through him in something that he feels really uncomfortable. And he literally said to me, he goes, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I won't make you. I said,
Yeah.
but I think you should.
That's good.
And he's like, okay, I'll do it. And if you would listen to that, the first one that I did with him, it's called something Wolf, because I said something about a wolf in the podcast, so they named it that. But he is the quintessential tradesman. He truly is the guy with the tools in his hand. That's where he feels most comfortable, but yet has the ability, because of his care for people, to do the things that make him the most uncomfortable. And I would say that's what you need if you want to learn and grow. You need to be willing to be uncomfortable.
Let's go.
And the question of how far you're going to go is how you tolerate the discomfort. Because it gets worse.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing that. So on the flip side, I'm not going to make you name a name.
Oh, good. The worst?
But I'm
Again,
sure that
Jason
you-
Rich. No.
But I'm sure that you had a really challenging guest. And the reason I'm asking this question is because people learn from mistakes.
Yeah.
And so what makes for a challenging guest?
Oh, I know exactly which one, and I won't name names, but if you binge watch, you might figure it out. A challenging guest is this. So I've been doing this. What did you say this is? 50?
This is 58.
This is 58. I don't notice cameras anymore. They don't affect me. I could care less. Matter of fact, our team has kind of ruined movies for me because
Yeah.
now I know what's going on behind the lens. But I had a guest once that I sat there and I had asked him a question, and I kind of would set him up for him to be able to share his story and talk about it. And he just responded, and I was like, I asked him something like, was that hard for you? Because I wanted him to share about the hardship that he went through, because, and he's like, no, not at all. And I was like, okay, all right. And so then we were at another point in the podcast, and I was like, well, what do you think about that? I don't think anything about that. I'm like, okay. And it went on like that through the podcast, just one-liners. And it was, so that's difficult when there's not a conversation. And so I don't know if people get nervous around the camera or not.
Right.
But it's like, if you can just look at me and we can have a conversation and we can forget what's going on around us. And sometimes that's a lot of fun because sometimes there's heavy equipment and things like that. And I love those, you know, when there are things like that going on. But if you can focus on me, then we can forget everything else that's there. But if you can't and you're really nervous and you're giving me one-liner answers, that is physically exhausting.
Come on. Yeah, I've been practicing podcasting this year quite a bit, and it's helped me at home.
Yeah.
Better communication with my wife because I can stay super focused on the conversation, you know, instead of getting distracted across the board. Okay, well, this
You
seems
should
like
have a conversation with your wife, put headphones on and get mics. You'd really be able to.
She would hate it, but that's a whole nother story. She doesn't know how I do what I do. I'm like, honey, it's for the greater good of the industry. I'm just going to keep going. Okay, well, throughout your podcast, you'll usually ask a question.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to ask this one first. Which guest had the most unique can't live without tool or gear, and did it inspire you to adopt it yourself?
Yeah. Inspired to adapt it myself, yes. Succeeding at adapting myself, no. I had a guest. Did you ask me which guest?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, or really, what is the, you know, which, not just which guest, but also what was the tool?
So it's I've gotten some crazy answers.
Yeah.
I've gotten some stupid answers, but
Of course.
and you know who you are. But this one, like,
Blew you
it
away.
did. It blew me away, and I'm like, wow. And they took it to a whole, and it wasn't fake. It wasn't anything. But they said their one thing that they can't live without. And I told them I was like a tool or a piece of gear, you know, and they go, is compassion. And I was like, okay. And he said, compassion is a tool that I need to use in my work.
Come on.
And he goes, it is lost. And people are desperate for it. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him say this, and I'm like, wow. One, he was absolutely 100% right. I don't care what industry you're in. Our world needs more compassion.
Come on.
And like, we need that. And I was like, I want that to be my one thing. I want that to be my one thing.
That's so good.
Yeah, I didn't say it. That's why it was good.
Fantastic. Having said that, and that's maybe your new one thing that you're working on adapting, and you've been able to listen to 57 people kind of share.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, what is your one thing?
So I was on a podcast recently, and I was asked this question by the host.
Oh, fantastic.
He was actually, I couldn't stand him. He was really annoying as a host. Aaron Witt. He asked me what was my one thing. And for me, it's a watch.
Okay.
I don't like electronics. I have to use them a lot. I like things that are old, that work the way that they worked 100 years ago, because I know that they're going to do the same thing now. And I think anybody that works on any team that I'm a part of, I think being punctual and professional is the thing that you need to do to succeed, to communicate to people that you care. I grew up, love you, Dad. I grew up being late for everything. And I realized that communicated to people that I don't care about your time.
Yeah.
And so I want to watch on my wrist so that I'm like, all right, where am I at? How am I doing? Am I gonna, like, it's my one thing. So.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I may or may not have listened to that. Aaron has kind of a cheap watch, I think is what he was saying. Like, he's not a Rolex type guy.
Yeah.
No, that was fascinating. Very cool. All right, here we go.
I may or may not have listened to that. Yeah, his CEO did the podcast. He's required to listen.
Actually, he's fascinating. He's a great storyteller. I enjoy it. I still watch the vlog and I send him messages. I do think it's cool that a show that I watched before I joined, I get a watch.
Yeah.
And then I get a message to the guy who's doing it.
Yeah, I think
Kinda
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but whole nother story. Okay, what has been the most humbling moment of your podcasting journey?
Dang, you're going deep. Next thing you're going to do is ask me the other question that I ask other people. The most humbling moment of my podcasting journey. Sorry, this one is hard only because I don't like to So the most humbling moment is when I've led someone into an embarrassing part of the conversation. So when you're hosting, you are driving.
Yeah.
And I have led different people into an area where I knew that they were uncomfortable, and I felt bad about that.
Yeah.
So
hopefully I didn't just do that to you.
no, well, here's the deal. I'm all about being honest,
Yeah.
and I told you nothing's off limits. And
100%.
if I'm going to be real and authentic with people, then nothing can be off limits. And this is who
But-
I am. I'd say I don't want to talk about that.
And let me tell you something that you just did that's okay.
Okay.
You thought about it for a minute
Yeah.
because you wanted to be real and honest. You wanted to be authentic. You wanted to be genuine. And because it was a little deeper, you needed some time. It's okay in this world.
Oh, that's good, Jason.
To take some time to think before you respond. We live in such a fast-paced world. Everybody thinks they got to have an answer right now, right now, right now. It's even okay to say, I don't know.
Okay, so we got to stop on that just for a second because I deal with this all the time. Guys on the job, you're out there working. Let's say it's your first job that you're running. And you're out there working, and the general contractor comes to you, or whoever it is that you're working for comes to you, and they're looking to you for an answer because you're the plumber, you're the painter, you're the excavator, you're the electrician, whoever, and they're asking specific to your trade, and you don't know. What Jason just said is something that we tell our people, and you need to know if you're listening. It's okay to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but this is what you can say. But I know where to find it, and I'm going to go find out.
That's right.
And that's what we need to do. We need to be honest about the fact that we don't know. Listen, I'm an electrician. I could spend my entire life learning the code, learning electrical work. It changes every so many years. I will never, ever know everything. And I've noticed that I start forgetting things that I had learned. So it's like, it's okay to say that you don't know because nobody knows.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good. Okay, this is podcast number 58.
Yeah.
And I want you to, for a second, you have a chance to tell Joshua Malott on episode number 1 some advice. What advice would you give Joshua Malott for episode 1? Because somebody may be doing in episode 1.
Yeah. Really easy question to answer. I don't have to think about it because Aaron Witt was a real jackwagon and didn't give me this advice because, and I'm not trying to promote him, except I just did a podcast with him a little while ago, and he said this to me, and I'm like, you could have told me that when I started, but he didn't. And know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Now, he was teasing me, and I tend to bite off big pieces. It doesn't mean that you don't. But like if you work in the trades and you're doing an estimate, and you can make that step and go for a bigger job, but make sure that you look at the numbers and you look at what's there and you know what you're getting into. Doesn't mean that you don't do it, but count the cost and know what you're getting into. And so I don't think I would have changed anything, but it would have actually helped me a lot to know what I was getting into.
That's fantastic.
If that's the way that you're going to do this, we can do this for like 2 hours if you're going to tell me my answers are fantastic.
No, it's just, it's interesting because I listen to your podcast and for me, it's kind of fun because here I am hosting. We're having this incredible conversation and I'm getting the answers live. And one thing I've learned is I've been on several podcasts, but I actually enjoy hosting way more than I like being on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so, as you're answering that question, I now know what I'm getting into when I'm a guest, and I know what I'm getting into when I'm hosting.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just, it's important for people to have an experience in both of those.
Yeah.
And realize that, podcasting is just an incredible way of connecting
I
with people.
totally agree. Totally agree.
Cool. Okay, here we go. You ask every guest about mistakes.
I was knowing that you weren't going to miss that. Yeah.
So talk to me about a mistake that you've made.
Well, the funny thing is mistakes are really valuable. And the reason that I ask people that is because selfishly I want to learn from their mistakes so I don't repeat them. And the thing that makes a mistake more valuable than another is how painful it is and how bad it is. The worse the mistake, the more valuable it probably is. So for me, So this one is hard because I care a lot about people.
Mm-hmm.
But in running companies or running a company, you are for sure going to hurt people. And you're going to do things or handle things in a way that's going to hurt them. And you need to wrap your head around that. And I think words matter a lot. And so the key is know that you're going to hurt people, but do your best not to harm people. I think there's a real difference between hurt and harm. Listen, I've laid people off, I've fired people, and I don't think I harmed them, but I know I hurt them. My greatest mistake would be the way that I, early on in building a company, treated members of my team when I got nervous or I got frustrated or I got scared. And they're no longer a member of my team because that Josh was not someone they wanted to work for. And so I wish I could go back in time and change that, and I can't because time is ever marching forward. But what I can do is not do it again. And some of them really hurt, and I write them down. I write them down because it does something in my mind so that it burns into my mind so I don't forget it, so that I don't repeat it. And I literally have been in situations where I've caught myself starting to repeat that mistake, and I'm like, oh no, we're not doing this again.
That's good.
The sad part is you'll learn new mistakes.
Yeah. All right, so this question's not planned, but have you given yourself grace?
It's supposed to be truthful, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you would ask my wife that question, she would say, not as much as you should. Like, I feel guilty even saying that, but the reality is that actually is probably the biggest way to not repeat the mistake that I said that I have, is that I need to give myself more grace.
Yeah.
I had a young man make a mistake on a job once. I'll cover some heavy civil and some vertical here when I talk about this. We installed duct banks, which is an underground utility concrete encased duct bank. And we were on the job way early. He took a benchmark shot. We put the duct bank in. About a year goes by, and they're grading the job. This is a fun one. And a few hundred feet of a very large concrete encased duct bank all of a sudden appeared above grade because he measured wrong. And I mean, we're not going to talk about the dollars of what it cost, but I never will forget. That was a really good experience for me to see where, one, as a leader, I needed to give him grace right in the moment. I would be lying if I told you that I wasn't furious, but I needed to keep it all inside because I was going to destroy him because he was a good guy, and he knew what he cost the company. He knew how stupid the mistake was in that moment. And so I'll never forget being there with him and helping teach him about grace. And this is what we all need to do. If you're that guy and that happens, whether your boss says what I said, where I was like, hey, it's okay. We're going to figure it out. We won't do it again. Let's figure it out. But what he needed to do in that moment was acknowledge his mistake, give himself grace, because if you didn't, he would have never been able to move on. He wouldn't be in the trades anymore because he wouldn't be able to deal with it. So
that's so good.
Yeah.
So good. Perfect segue. You talked about the line, it's education, it's awareness, it's mentorship, it's leadership. And you've just talked about, a lesson that you've learned kind of along the way. So what's one story that was told on the line that resonates with you every day?
Oh, man, I should have listened to him too. A story that was told on the line that resonates with me every day.
You just continue to think about.
Just give me a second.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, I'll just keep babbling. But
yeah, no, it's all good. You're processing, and like I said, sometimes you need to think about it.
Yeah.
You've had 57 guests, and I'm sure that there's many. But if there's one that sticks out, like a story that just every once in a while it pops in your head, it's like, man, that was impactful. That was powerful.
Can I
was
give
a
you
great
two?
Lesson. Yeah.
Okay. So there are two stories, and they're recurring. Multiple people have told these stories.
Interesting.
So one, and the one that stands out to me, Randy said this, but others have said this as well, they grew up in the trades. They grew up. I mean, you've even shared that.
Yep, fourth generation road builder.
Nobody ever. If you meet Jason, it's the first words out of his mouth. Grew up in the industry, and it's like that's a story that resonates with me because it's part of what we do and why we do it. Mm-hmm. Because there's not enough of us that grew up in the industry to know how to get into the industry of why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who you're not a fourth generation road builder, you can be a first generation road builder.
That's right.
And that's a story that resonates with me every day in the sense of being able to keep moving forward with what we're doing. The other thing that I would say is, and this is a common theme, I had a conversation with Mike Holt, and he talked about how hard it was. And this is on one of our episodes with him, but in the electrical world, he is the guy. Our training platform, the people that we teach works off of his curriculum. And ever since I've been an electrician, he's written all the books. And when he tells his story, he talks about, because no one else was writing them back then.
Yeah.
But he tells this story where he's writing this book and he's going out in this way. And I think this is important for any of you who are listening, who are feeling called to either start a business or go out on your own or do this or do that. And the story that he tells is he's coming home and their bank accounts are empty. He's trying to publish this book, and there is a foreclosure sticker on the garage of his house. And he tells me the story, and he's like, they just put it right up there, really big, really humiliating. And his wife says to him, he says, well, what are we doing? What are we doing? And he says that, it's like, well, if I give up now, I know we've lost everything. But if I don't give up and I keep pushing forward, I know there's a chance that we might succeed. And that, for me, is a story that is so real, so good. So those are the people who change the world, that change industry, that choose not to give up. And it's like, when he was telling me the story, he was living in one of a few houses that he owns. Mm-hmm. In a very nice place. I won't say where, but we'll just say in the western states. It was absolutely gorgeous. And there was no foreclosure sticker on the garage.
That's good.
Because he didn't give up.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I know we talk often. We text. We jump on calls, and, this year, late, you started thinking about, man, is this worth it? Is the line worth it?
You actually listen when I talk.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were genuine in asking, like, is what I'm doing, making a difference? And I responded immediately. I'm selfish. I'm like, I love listening to your podcast. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. I enjoy it. But I'm curious, has anybody reached out and shared the impact that you're having on people by doing the line?
So this is not all real and authentic, because we might have talked about this earlier. You might know the answer already, but yeah. I think diligence is something that really matters in work. Mm-hmm. And my wife has taught me a lot. I grew up in a farming area, and some of my first jobs were on a farm, and my wife now has a cut flower farm. And we plant seeds, and we wait for them to grow. Really cool part about planting seeds and waiting for them to grow. For months, it just looks like dirt. You don't see anything. You don't know what's going on. You water it, you work on it, you do that stuff, and you have no idea if that seed's going to... And they don't always come up. You have no idea. But you got to be diligent. And so for me... because Aaron never gave me the advice of how hard this was going to be, mm-hmm. It's been really hard, and it's been a huge investment as an organization, mm-hmm. as a company. Money. It takes money to do this, and so here we are. I agreed to the team that I would do a year, one podcast a week, and we did that. And I've been coming around on the second season, and I don't like to just do things without measuring them, without being like, because you can end up, again, if you run a business, you know how this works. If you don't look at things, you end up running out of money, and then you're done. And so I was really wondering, well, what is the goal of the podcast, and is that happening? Is it impacting people? And so, yes, over the past few months, as we've decided, would I even sit down here and talk with you? Because this is to wrap season 1 and to launch season 2. Is it having an impact? Is it doing that? And so I've been pretty honest about my faith on the podcast. So I have to bring that into what I talk about, because the reality is I've been asking this question of my Lord and Savior. I've been asking this question of people that I care about, people that I know care about me, like you. But I've been doing it privately. But just recently, I've heard some people reach out to me and say, yeah, this is really good. This is really that. But literally just last night, I'm getting ready to make an investment and go on this, we're doing this little mini road trip for season 2. And I'm talking with my business partner, and I'm like, what am I doing? And while I'm sitting there, this guy texts me that I'd done a podcast with earlier in the year. And he's like, hey, I'm binge watching The Line. And I just want to tell you, it's good. It's encouraging me. And he's texting me things that is encouraging me that it's having an impact. And then I know I'm being long-winded here, but
no, this is good.
Then I'm on the road trip coming here. And the vice president of our electrical company calls me and he says, yeah, was negotiating a job today with a new client, and they started to ask me if the Josh Malott that's involved with our company is the Josh Malott that's on The Line. And he's like, The Line? What? And they said that their office listens to it.
That's so good.
And that it has a positive impact.
Come on.
So for me, and let's be real, the cool thing about hosting, and you know this because you've done it, it's not about the host. It's about the people that you bring on. And so I would even say, if you're listening to this and you know someone that you think that you want to hear from, we would love to host them. And so to answer your question, I have been encouraged. I'm going to say this publicly. I am going to do season 2.
Yay.
And so we are doing that. We are making that investment. And I think it's worth it.
That's good. I think it's worth it too. And I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your entire team. I'm glad that you're getting the encouragement. I'm glad that you're turning to the good Lord for direction and guidance. I think that's absolutely fantastic. And if you're, want to be a guest, reach out.
Absolutely.
You may get a no or not right now, but at the end of the day,
Jason has asked like 15 times, and we finally gave in and let him on the podcast.
No, all kidding aside. Speaking of guests, though, kind of curious, if you could interview any historical or figure, who would it be, and what would you ask them?
Teddy Roosevelt, hands down.
Man, that was fast.
Hands down. Teddy Roosevelt. You want to talk about not being a quitter. So Teddy Roosevelt, he gave a speech once, and that speech hangs in our office. It's called The Man in the Arena. It's actually not that long.
Yeah, so good.
And I'm not going to try to quote it all. I should, because it's worth it. Like, you need to Google it, you need to read it, you need to listen to it. Actually, go on YouTube and you can listen to it. It is powerful. And it basically talks about the man in the arena with the dust and the blood on his face. And the critics and the skeptics, they don't matter. But the man who is in the dirt, daring to try, daring to do the work. I would want to sit down and have a conversation with him and be like, all right, what was the thing that you were able to do that? I mean, this is a guy that gave a speech once and got shot in the chest and continued to give the speech. Like, I want to wrap my head around, all right, so what is the don't quit mentality that you have, that you get shot? I got to be honest with you. If someone would shoot me during the podcast, I don't know if I would keep going. So yeah. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with him.
I love that. Well, I think that's fantastic. And so if the line continues for another 5 years.
Sorry, I had a little heart palpitation there.
What does success look like?
if the line continues for another 5 years, what success looks like, I believe, is that real people having real conversations that elevate not only the view of the skilled trades, but provide an opportunity for people to learn from other people's mistakes, because we're having conversations with real and authentic people, and they're honest. And so people are, like, if you want to be a guest, recognize this. You're going to step up to the line, and we're going to ask you hard questions, and you're going to answer them. Or I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable. Because the reality is, people need to hear about your mistakes. They need to hear about those things. And so success is that people can listen and save themselves from a mistake that they might have made themselves. Like, I have made, I can't believe I'm going to say this, I have made hundreds of thousands of dollars mistakes. I would have loved to have heard a podcast that would have saved me $100,000.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, they're really simple things.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to talk about them.
Yeah, it's so good. All right, we're coming to a close.
Okay.
I've got one more question to ask, and then we'll wrap up. But if this were your last episode, what's the one thing you'd want listeners to take away from everything you've done with the line?
That's pretty simple, actually. So at Blackline, our vision is to lift the view of the skilled trades. And a vision is something that you actually never attain. You continue to go after it. You continue to go for it. But our mission, this is what I would want people to get. Our mission is to communicate that people have value.
Mm.
If you're the guy in the trench and you're working and you feel like nobody sees you, I see you. Mm. If you're the electrician who's wiring stuff up, all your work's going to get covered up, no one's ever going to see it, I see it. I want you to know that you have value. The men and women that do this work, that when I go to my hotel tonight and I turn on the faucet and the water comes out, they have value. And I want our mission, and mission is something that you actually accomplish. Mm-hmm. And so if this was my last episode of The Line, whoever is listening, in whatever industry, whatever trade, wherever you are, I don't even care if you work in an office, because that helps the field. We all matter. I want you to know that you have value in what you're doing. There's a plan and a purpose in where you are and what you're doing, and you have value.
Incredible. Josh, I am absolutely honored that you would ask me to help close up season 1. And I just want you to know you're making a difference. Keep going.
Thanks, Jason.
Really proud of you.
Thanks.
Really, really proud of you. Wish you and your team all the best this holiday season. And I know it's going to be an incredible 2025.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too.